Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Tucson, Arizona, Pima County, and Fresh Start saying good morning. Let's get up and let's get started. You know, get your cup of coffee or whatever you need to open your eyes and open your ears, because we're running through the Christmas edition of the Fresh Start Show, because we are on the 21st of December. And next Wednesday, is it? Next Wednesday is Christmas. And I hope everybody has their shopping done. I'm sure we don't. I hope everybody is ahead of the game at least and got all the kids taken care of and all the lights up and all the food ready to be cooked and shared with family and friends and celebrated for such a special day and an occasion and moving into a new year. So good morning, Tucson and Pima County from the Fresh Start Show. This is Tom Cortese, the co-host of the Fresh Start Show. Dr. Holt is in Phoenix today, and he is signing new contracts with the Arizona Department of Corrections Juvenile Division because he's going into the juvenile system to teach trauma resiliency, not only to the staff and the administration, but then he's going to work with the juveniles and implement programs and policies and procedures that will help trauma resilient policies, overarching, necessary, essential, especially in the juvenile section, to be implemented. And that is such a huge step. It's such a huge step for what we've been talking about on the show for years. You know, that if we could stop that pipeline, you know, from the trauma to prison, from the juvenile to prison, from the poverty to prison, you know, from a disenfranchised group to prison, from a minority group to prison. Where was it? I was just reading some numbers on disparity, racial disparities. African Americans and Hispanics make up a disproportionate percentage of the prison population. Black Americans are incarcerated at roughly 5 times the rate of white Americans. These disparities often stem from systemic issues such as over-policing in communities of color, bias sentencing, and economic inequality. So, we know that's true. We know it is true in virtually most states in the country. So let's change it. Let's start working together to do public policy advocacy and policy reform. We would love to start changing the sentencing code. And, you know, it was a beautiful thing with the second chance that young men who were juveniles and convicted for life should get a second chance, and a bunch of people got out over that. But you know what? There's a bunch of people still sitting in there, and there's a bunch of people still sitting in there doing not only life sentences but natural life sentences. And what I mean by a natural life sentence is when you get your time comp and it comes to you in the mail, at the line where it says release date, it just has X's all the way across. And because there is no release date, you will die in prison. And I've spoken about it before. I have a very, very dear friend, Luke Kerner. Go to his Facebook. He writes wonderful blog. Luke Kerner is Koerner. Look him up on Facebook, man. He writes a great blog. He's been in there for 25 plus years. The guy that committed the murder got out like 6 years ago. The person that planned it got out like 20 years ago. And because he was, wow. And he's still in there because he testified that he did it because they were going to give his wife the death penalty. So he said he did it so that he spared her the death penalty. She ended up doing 5 years, and he's still in prison for the rest of his life when the person who actually committed the murder is free. I don't know if he's still free. I know he got out 5 or 6 years ago. Anyway, let's get on to better things. It's the Christmas holiday. And wow, prison and Christmas. The packages, we talked about that a little bit last week with the moms. And you know, we didn't get in there. My wife got on me about it, that we didn't talk about the wives. And and the baby mama and all of that stuff that do show up and do put money on the books and do look out for you and do read all those letters that you write, making all of those promises of the things that you're going to do when you come home. And she showed those letters to people because he promised he's going to do this. So stop talking bad about him, because he's going to stand up and he's going to take responsibility and he's going to do what he needs to do. You wrote those letters. Now it's time to stand behind him. You know, we do the orientation out at the Release Center, and the last few weeks, it's like you walk in there and it's been full. And it's like everybody's just sitting there. They're not even smiling, man. And you're home for the holidays. And all I can think of is those little rectangle trays with that little round thing of cranberry, you know, that whatever that stuffing stuff was, and the potatoes with that just truckload of gravy on it, and the processed turkey, and then there was that piece of pie, right? And that was your holiday. And I suppose it's not what you eat in that day, it's the company that you keep. And there's a lot of men and women that are in prison that are going to be going through this holiday season, and they're going to be struggling, and they're going to be anxious, and they're going to get depressed. And I'm telling you now that if you get to feeling that way, reach out and talk to somebody. Because the holiday season out here, it is no different than in there, except the food's better. That's it. And there's more of it. That's it. Because I'll tell you what, the people out here are struggling too. There's people struggling with the darkness that just permeates everything out here. The negativity that just permeates everything out here. Everybody, you hear people speak, and it's like it cuts off life. And I try to press into people to speak life into each moment, into every next moment, for every individual, because every day can be Christmas for you. For us who believe, and me having this faith that I have in Christ, every day I believe with expectation and anticipation that there are going to be things that happen in that day, that people are going to be raised up and shown to be talented. They're going to be shown to be worthy. And you too are. Stop thinking of yourself as less than. Don't ever do that anymore. Because we can do whatever it is we want to do. I'm on a radio show every week. I spent almost 30 years in prison. I'm on a radio show every week, getting the city of Tucson to listen to my little epistles and my stories and my renderings and my translations. But I do know one thing. I know prison, because it's been the vast majority of my life. And I know Christmas in prison because I spent, I believe, 29 Christmases incarcerated. And my heart goes out to each and every one of you that are incarcerated during this holiday season. My prayers will be with you and your families throughout this holiday season. And I will reach out to you and tell you that you should reach out to us. If you or your families need something, please reach out to us. We will find a way to get you the help that you need. We will find you a way to get you the resources that you need, to point you in the right direction, or to walk with you to the location that gets you what it is that's going to get you to move forward. You know, as always, a shout out to 10,000 South Wilmot, man. All the guys at the Arizona State Prison, you know, the Daniel and you guys out at Santa Rita and the Second Chance out there at Manzanita and stuff like that. And the Bureau of Prisons and Frederick, just got your letter today. I haven't read it yet, but I will. And thank you for that. Merry Christmas to each and every one of you guys. And again, remember, man, it's not over. It's never over unless you choose to make it that way. We have such a future, and we have such an opportunity, because each and every one of you possess something that nobody else has, and that's your story. And your story is important to another life. And you don't even know which life that is. And that's the crazy part. I believe God told me to speak. And he said, it's going to bring you shame and it's going to bring you embarrassment, but it's going to bring the men and women that hear you speak the things you speak that bring you shame and embarrassment. It's going to give them courage that they could speak out and they can get help for the things that they've been through. And it's no easy feat doing all those years in prison, you know, and people say I did it standing on my head and all of that stuff. And every day is miserable and every day is great and every day is awful and every day is has its moments. But every day is another day that it is completely up to you to fill that day with what you want the rest of your life to be. Because you got to start somewhere. You know, and it's beautiful. We have Ray Romero from Arizona at Work. He does the orientations also to get guys jobs and stuff. And he says, it's the first day. You know, it's your first day, man. Either make it a new one or return to the old. But you got a shot. Make it a fresh start. Why not? You know, and here's the thing, because I've seen it and it's crazy. Let me tell you that 2 weeks ago at the orientation, I was speaking and I was talking about the county jail, and after being shot and being brought to the county jail from the hospital in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the waist down, and looking at the rest of my life in prison for having this gunfight with Tucson Police Department. And it's crazy. One of the guys that was in the orientation was in 2B in the county jail with me in 1984 when I was still in a wheelchair and had just been brought over from St. Joseph's, from University Hospital at that point. They moved me from St. Joseph's to University because they were going to try to take the fragments out, and they never did. And they just transported me to the county jail at that time. And it, wow. And that was, man, July of 1984. And this guy was in the orientation, man. And he said, I was with you then, man. And he'd been in and out 3, 4, 5 times, you know. And it's the same cycle with all of us, that we're going to continue this cycle. We're going to perpetuate the cycle because we don't get help for the things that can stop the cycle. And I'll tell you, man, I've seen people get help. I see people flourishing. Nick, man, this dude, he got out and he just started studying and getting certificates and doing whatever it took, man, and paying his bills and doing the halfway house thing and taking the bus, and, you know, and it's easy to get discouraged because, you know, the bus, it's awful, and, you know, there's meth heads and fentanyl heads on and all of that stuff. But you know what? It gets you from where you are to where you need to be. And then when you're there, you get to go do what you need to be doing in order to move forward. And so we do what we got to do to get to the next place, man. And there are people to help, man. And it's very cool. I now get contacted by different people around the city in political positions, asking if I would help certain individuals that they know or a friend of theirs knows, and that I can sit down with them and talk to them. And it gives people hope that having a past like mine, they can still have a future. And maybe like mine, maybe better than mine. You know, I mean, I still struggle. I still, you know, have difficulties with a lot of stuff out here, you know. It's not super easy after spending 30 years in the joint to live out here. It's not easy being around people. I tell people all the time, man, I'm the best Christian in the world in solitary confinement. When you put me out in population, then that's a different story. Then I got to deal with people. And that's exactly what we're supposed to be dealing with. And we're supposed to be using our stories and their stories because, you know, all those years, all those stories, and all those similarities in those stories came back to the same thing that we always talk about virtually every show. And it's the traumas that put us in the place, that put us in the place, that put us in the joint. And when we start to deal with those things, then those things that people say is our problem, like the addiction, you know, using heroin or using alcohol, then those things start to fade away because you don't need to escape anymore and get away from this life that you're living because you're able to face up to the issues that you've had. So let's cheer it up a little bit. The new website is up, and it is fresh-start.international. Fresh-Start International. Okay? And the address here at the radio station, if you want to write us here, is 3222 South Ritchie, Suite 124266, Tucson, Arizona, 85719. That's the Fresh Start Show at 3222 South Ritchie, Suite 124266, Tucson, Arizona, 85719. And you can send your questions or inquiries or anything like that to the Fresh Start website at info@fresh-start.international. Info@fresh-start.international. Don't go to the old website because the old website has been hijacked, and so we have the new website, which is fresh-start.international. So go to that, okay? And remember that we had to call off the Christmas event because all the toys were actually issued out to the schools. And we worked with District 1 last year at Palo Verde High School, and I'm sure they're going to be doing another big thing there again. So get out there and get access to that. The other thing is our first clinic is going to be in March of this year. And so what we are looking for this year is we are looking for attorneys that are willing to sacrifice a day to help do basically paralegal and put together forms and fill out documents and represent people before a judge on a Saturday and on your day off, and enjoy yourself changing people's futures. So we would love to have any attorneys. You know, you can contact me at the website, Thomas, at fresh-start.international. And also, we're looking for paralegals, any paralegals that are willing to volunteer for our events and work through the day and volunteer and help people move into the future without fines or with structured payments or expungement or restoration, like I got. The restoration of their rights in the League of Women Voters is actually pushing to have your rights restored immediately as soon as your sentence is complete. So at the point of your absolute discharge, it would be automatic that your rights get restored, and you don't have to file for each case or anything like that. It would be automatic. And they're putting I believe it's a petition, and they're trying to get it in for a vote. So hopefully we can get that through, which would be very, very important to getting over 100,000 people that are disenfranchised from voting that are free from prison. And you know, there's like 70-some thousand that are locked up now that can't vote because they're locked up. Funny thing is, Vermont, Maine, and Washington, D.C., inmates that are incarcerated do vote, and they are registered to vote. And I don't see why they shouldn't be. As long as they are mentally healthy, they should be able to vote, because the people that are being voted into office and the policies that are being voted on have a lot to do with them, and it applies to them. So voting rights are super important, people, and don't just rest on your laurels like, you know, other people are going to make these decisions for me. We don't want other people making these decisions. We want a block of people that know what the lived experience of those people who have been through the system have endured. You know, so if we have people that have been in the county jail and they've experienced that nightmare, and then they've been to the state prison or they've been to the federal prison and they've gotten through that, we want those experiences. People need those experiences because they need the strength that it took for you to get through it, for them to get through it. And if you share that, then we keep making a bigger bond, a tighter bond, a stronger bond when we bring more people into it, when we bring more of the stories into it. So let me try to close out the show with this. It's a Christmas season and it's a new year coming up, and we have done 4 Fresh Start Expos. We have done 3 clinics. We have easily eliminated over $1 million in fines over the last 4 years. There have been I witnessed 7 Celia records, and I know there's been more of that filed. The expungement of on the record for marijuana and stuff like that. Restoration of rights for anybody convicted of more than 1 felony. If you have been convicted of 1 felony, you get your rights back right away. But if it is 2 or more felonies, then you have to file paperwork. And if it is multiple felonies, you have to file the paperwork on each felony. So there are opportunities. There are organizations that help with that. We're one of them, and at our events. And let's go into 2025 with all of the stuff that we need to sweep out of the house to clean it, and let's get that done. So if you can get some things expunged, if you can get your rights restored, please do, because we need your vote. And we need you to research what you're voting on, because a lot of these things we just voted on this last time has a lot to do with human rights. And we're all in that category. So even if you're in the joint, even if you haven't been treated like you have any human rights, and even if you've been treated inhumane, it doesn't matter. You still have human rights, and you still have a say-so in what it is that is going to govern us. The Bible says that the government will be upon his shoulders, and we are to pray for all elected officials. And we are to pray for wisdom when we make decisions, when we vote. And I pray that each of you does that you pray, and that you ask for guidance, and that you research, and you do all you can to be part of the system that changes a system that disenfranchised millions of people with the idea that mass incarceration was going to stop violence in this country. It has not. And it hasn't stopped any of the death penalty. It hasn't stopped any of those things. The deterrents that they have always put forth to stop crime have failed. We can't continue to lock people up and expect that just because they're locked up, they're going to change. You have to do something while they're there. You have to do something for them while they're there. You have to offer something for somebody to reach out and grab while they're there. If there's nothing to do, then they're going to do what they've always done. And you wonder why you got a spice problem and a fentanyl problem and a heroin problem and a meth problem in the state prison? That's why. Because the people don't have any other alternative but to turn to something that destroys them. Give them something that gives them life. Give them programming on their tablets, man. Give them people coming into the prison teaching classes again. Let them do things that are constructive, that will build toward a future. Bring in companies that are going to train people with sustainable wages that can sustain an individual and a family. We need to train. There's a data programming, there's a tech program, there's programs like that. There's a code writing program, beautiful programs that could put people in a category that they never thought they'd be in before. It just takes the opportunity of you speaking out and moving toward it. And if they don't have the programs at your prison, start writing letters. Okay? Write letters to the administration and to the guidance staff. Write letters to the people that offer programs around the country. Have your people from out on the streets send you information about doing correspondence. God bless you, people. Have a really good Christmas. I'll see you next week on Saturday of next week. Have a good Christmas, and I'll see you before the new year. Remember, mistakes are a life lesson and not a life sentence. So have a fresh start each and every day and give somebody else a fresh start by showing them some kindness and pay it forward for the next person because each person needs a little bit to pay it forward.